How's it going, folks? Stu here. Another day, another London Film Festival review for you guys. And listen, every year I like to see how quickly it takes for an absolute banger to come along and just wow me. And I'll be honest, this year I did feel like we were off to a sort of a slow start in that department. There were good things, nothing quite slapping like, you know, wow, best of the year slapping. That is until I saw the new one from Todd Haynes, May December. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a banger. We have a banger on our hands. So May December, the new one from Todd Haynes. Listen, I'm a fan of Todd Haynes' work. A couple of his stuff hasn't worked for me. Most of the stuff I've seen from him just slaps. So I was incredibly excited to see what he might bring with this new effort, which sees him partnering up with Julianne again, alongside Natalie Portman. And I'm going to waste no time on this review in getting to the point, because this thing it rules so hard, man. May December is the first sort of big banger of the festival, of the latter half of the year for me. I absolutely love this thing through and through. The premise of this one, I'm going to keep short and simple. Essentially, it is about an actress who is visiting someone in the hopes of studying them for a role that they are doing in a film, the role being that person. I feel like I could have maybe surmised that a bit better. Who am I kidding? No, it's this channel. We don't do that around here. We'll just roll with it. And the first and most immediate thing about May December that just completely hooked me was this thing's tone and atmosphere, which is the first of a long list of things that truly slapped about this one. But honestly, this tone is so unique and singular, and it's one of those film tones and atmospheres which you can definitely see being done truly tragically in the wrong hands. But Todd Haynes makes easy work of it. It's this very kind of peculiar mismatch of this heightened sort of melodrama, this very absurd dark comedy, but also some really sad and moving under the hood stuff. Because right from this thing's opening title sequence, and I've got to give a shout out to opening title sequences, I feel like any film that can come along and really just relish that opening title sequence, I'm game for. I'm happy. You got me on a good footing to start with. But the opening title to this one, it just immediately sets the mood of this piece as I mentioned, this very heightened, sort of melodramatic, almost telenovela vibe. And from there on out, the film is just this incredibly entertaining and satisfying weaving in and out of all of those different genres. I love what Todd Haynes ends up doing with this kind of narrative device of an actress studying a person on screen. It makes for some really amazing moments and sequences of morphing of people's emotions and morphing of people's sort of personalities and weaving of their threads and stories. And another part of the reason why it pulls that off so well is the performances that Haynes is able to get out of the lead actors here. We'll start with Julianne, who plays Gracie in the film, who is the person that Natalie Portman's character is there to study. She is, I believe, loosely based off of a real-life person, and without giving too much away, she's essentially a very infamous person within the community, within the world of this film, for having an affair with, I believe, a 12-year-old. As you can imagine there, a lot of stuff you can mine from in a performance of a character like that. And Julianne taps into this insanely watchable and absorbing kind of absurdity to the character. She heightens certain aspects of the personality for comedic effect, but never to an extent which feels like we're watching some kind of caricature, or rather that feels like it's getting in the way of actual meaty, juicy character stuff. She enters the film in this really kind of mundane but absurd way, and I was sort of a little bit worried that the character might end up going down a kind of just look how funny she is, laugh at her with her lisp kind of way. I don't mean that to suggest that lisps, I didn't want the film to do that, is what I'm saying. But obviously, I should have never doubted Julianne. She is Julianne. She absolutely crushes it as this character, and her character has got some insanely committed performance moments in the film that are all just absolutely smashed out the park. But also Natalie Portman just crushes it here. Definitely the best Natalie Portman performance we've seen from her for a while. That's what happens when you go and do Marvel things, isn't it? It is so insanely absorbing watching her shift her character to match Julianne Moore's character on screen, which is a theme of the film, you know, through the narrative device of an actress studying someone to perform her in a film. But there are so many scenes of this thing where the two of them are on screen together, and you can just sort of hone into small parts of their performances that are beginning to sort of line up. And it's just one of the ways that this film perfectly matches its thematic movements with the performance movements. It was just so good to watch them together on screen. I love Natalie Portman in this film. But actually one of the biggest performance surprises for me in the film comes from Charles Melton, who's actually, I don't think I've seen him in anything before. I believe he's from Riverdale, which would explain why I haven't seen him in anything before, because I have not watched any of that. His character is not only just truly fascinating, but also is probably the most emotionally resonant of the film and the deeply saddest part of the film for me. But ultimately, all of the characters and their performances in the film end up moving into this very sad place. I was very surprised at just how dark and emotionally bruising the end of this film might end up being. And again, I come back to Haynes' ability to kind of not lose sight of the emotional undercurrent of things while still heightening things for absurd dark comedy. You can be laughing one minute and then almost immediately or subconsciously at the same level just feeling very kind of sad for these characters and the situation that they're in. And I like that the film sort of avoids certain avenues around the Gracie character that might have felt either maybe problematic, for lack of a better word, or just, I suppose, kind of cliched or black and white. Haynes isn't afraid to throw us into uncomfortable moments and use that to pull out some really tragic stuff. It's definitely a very tragic film. I haven't even mentioned the score yet, which is doing all sorts of heavy lifting in that heightened, absurd, melodramatic department. Score-wise, and I don't mean this for the film as a whole because it's not a similar film, but the vibe of the score reminds me of watching a lot of those 80s De Palma films. They're very pointed and intense motifs that just keep cropping up and really do amp up the things we're seeing on screen. Ultimately, I could sit here and talk about this film for quite some time, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to end it there. Fantastic film. Definitely one to get on your watch list. I believe it is coming out in the UK on Sky towards the end of the year and everywhere else on Netflix very shortly. But what about you guys? Have you seen May December? Did you catch it at the festival? Have you seen it elsewhere? Are you excited for it? Let me know in the comments down below. We will have a little chat. Of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. The button is down there for that, as well as links to my socials, my Letterboxd, my... When do we have to... I don't want to call it Twitter. It's still Twitter. Go have a click and see where it takes you. It's exactly where I just told you it's going to take you. I don't know why I said that. I will see you guys very soon for some more thoughts on more films. But until next time, can somebody get Julianne Moore some more hot dogs, please?